Hey guys, what's up? It's a Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite films, and today I'm going to be doing a very quick movie review on Tokyo Monogatari, or Tokyo Story, from 1953, written and directed by the one and only legendary Ozu Yasujiro. Again, this is just one of those movies that have been on my watch list forever. I've been hearing about this movie forever, but I've never really watched it until now because Ozu is just one of those directors that I'm like, I know he's great, I've heard that he's great, but I'm scared that if I watch his films, I'm just gonna be like, I don't get it. But yeah, Ozu is one of the most, if not the most important figure in Japanese cinema. I mean, right alongside people like Kurosawa Akira and Kobayashi Masaki. These are the godfathers of Japanese cinema. And Ozu is also incredibly seminal. There are tons of great directors nowadays copying Ozu. And so I've heard all sorts of great things about Ozu. And the most well known film from his filmography is Tokyo Story. So I decided to give it a watch. I watched half of it last night and I got to sleep. And then I watched the second half this morning. Here are my thoughts on my first Ozu film ever. I think it's pretty great. Yeah, but I feel like I need to rewatch it in order to enjoy it. And I say that to pretty much every single great movie out there. There are tons of great movies out there where I watch and I'm like, okay, I understand why it's great. I sort of enjoyed it maybe, but this I don't know, man. I just need to rewatch it. Because the thing with Ozu is that his movies are slow. And there have been tons of slow movies that I enjoy, and then there are tons of other slow movies that I thought I would enjoy, but ended up not really enjoying. And this Tokyo Story is sort of in between, and it's not really a matter of enjoyment, really. It's more like a matter of, if you get it or not. So yeah, Tokyo Story is a family drama about a couple of old people, grandparents, traveling from somewhere, some town far away, to Tokyo to see their children, who have become adults now. And they have four children. Two of them live in Tokyo. One of them used to live in Tokyo but died in World War II. And then another person lived in Osaka. And so the old couple, the grandparents, they sort of tried to accept that their children have grown old now and they have their own children now, they have grandchildren now, and the world has moved on. World War II is over, the economy is booming, and everybody's getting out there and living their own lives now, and it's sort of about that, I guess. So yeah, it's definitely not a very accessible movie at all. Um, Legit, the first scene in this movie, or actually the second scene where the grandparents have arrived at the house at Tokyo, it's pretty boring. I was constantly trying to figure out what's going on. There are so many characters with different relationships. I was trying to figure out, okay, who's the son, who's the daughter? Is that the daughter-in-law, or is that the real daughter? Like, what's going on? Who's that person? And so throughout that entire scene, I was just trying to figure out who is who, and I was honestly a little bored. And throughout the first half, it takes things really slow, but as the story goes along, I start to pick up the real story, what's actually going on. And it's really nuanced, it's really subtle. So again, this is not an accessible movie at all. This is not a movie meant for average moviegoers. And I think I'm able to pick up these nuances partially because I've seen other slow, artsy movies with social commentary before, so I sort of know what's going on. But one thing with this movie is that almost every single character gives off a very smiley, happy performance. Everybody seems kind of happy. Everybody's smiling, everybody's happy, but really, to be able to enjoy this movie, you need to see through that and read the social cues and figure out how the people actually feel in the inside. So again, very nuanced, very subtle. This movie does not immediately show you what's actually going on. You kind of have to figure that out yourself. So yeah, and then we have the second half, which is there's one scene, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there's one plot point that I sort of saw coming. I knew it was gonna come, and I was like, okay, will it actually happen though? And it actually did happen. But it was done in a very tasteful way. It didn't feel very sudden and forced at all. And then we have I guess the second last scene, where after that said incident, Noriko, who is the daughter-in-law because her husband died in World War II, spoke to the grandfather of the family, and I legit cried a little bit during that scene. And it was one of those cries where it doesn't feel like a sad scene at all, but for some reason I was almost moved. I finally figured out what's going on, and I kind of cried a little bit. It's kind of weird because I was tearing up, and I was like, well, why am I even crying? But it's sort of this sad idea that old people belong in the old world and new people belong in the new world. And the new world is Tokyo. The Tokyo in Tokyo story doesn't exactly refer to Tokyo, more so refers to the new world that the adults are living in right now. They have their own lives and all that stuff. And the old people, they're just gonna live the rest of their lives in some random rural town, and that's it. They have done their jobs. They have done their jobs raising these children, and these children will abandon the old, and they will move on with life. But that's okay because that's life, and it's actually pretty sad. But this movie doesn't treat it like it's a really sad thing. The movie treats it like it's a natural force of life. It's a natural thing that's going to happen to every single generation. And so yeah, that's really beautiful, and I cried a little bit. But even so, I feel like I haven't enjoyed this movie to the fullest, so I'll have to rewatch it. But that was a really beautiful scene, and partially, I think the reason why the daughter-in-law cares so much about the grandparents is because the daughter-in-law also knows what being abandoned feels like since her husband had died. So there's that. And aside from that, I think the cinematography is great. I think the music is really emotional, really nice, but the cinematography is really great. Obviously, mostly still shots. There's one shot where the camera moves, but it was very subtle. It was sort of this track, this very slow track. But aside from that, pretty much every single shot is still in the interior. We're always very far away from the characters, so we're a little distanced. And then when the characters speak to each other, sometimes they face directly to the camera, and it's like, whoa, now we're right in the middle of their conversation. So it's really special, and there are a lot of insert shots of just buildings and houses and the sky and the train, and all of these shots are diagonal. The houses, they're never facing us like this. They're facing us like this. It's all diagonal. When the train passes by, it's not like this. It's not like this. It's like this. So it's all diagonal, and it looks really nice. I should learn that. Make every shot look diagonal. If it's exterior, make it diagonal. It just looks more interesting. So yeah, I guess that's that. This is my experience with my first Ozu film. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Have you seen Tokyo Monogatari? Comments below, let me know. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want more.